You're tuned in and locked on. Gay News Radio with Brandon Carmody. Only on the GNR Radio Network.
You're listening to Gay News Radio. I am Brandon Carmody, your humble host and narrator. My guest today is Freddy Niblack, who, according to Facebook, is a self-employed race car driver. Freddy, welcome to Gay News Radio.
Hey.
So let's start there. Did Facebook call it correctly, or are you a self-employed race car driver?
I am a race car driver. I race for McLaughlin Motorsports. Got several sponsors. Racing in the IndyCar series.
Absolutely. That's part of how we ended up connecting with you today. So it looks like you were featured in Unite magazine, Indianapolis recently. I'm going to quote here. Freddy Niblack is the first openly gay driver in the IndyCar series, but that's not all that defines him, as is the case for so many athletes, homosexual or not. He's also a person looking to accomplish a dream that he's had since childhood days, spent carving a racetrack through neighbors' yards and his go-kart. So you've really experienced racing or the aspiration, too, for most of your life, haven't you?
Yeah, I grew up in Speedway, Indiana, in a house literally 2 blocks west of the Indianapolis 500 track. We had this big, huge field right next to our house where people parked during the month of May to go to the 500, and that was my go-kart, quarter-midget, dirt bike track all year round. It depended on the weather, but yeah, it's just who I am, and it's just been an amazing ride. I think since I was a little kid, anything that had a motor and that would go fast, I wanted to be on it.
So did you start out with like go-karts, or did you just jump right into motorized?
I actually started out. Yeah, I started out with quarter midgets, and then progressed to go-karts. Quarter midgets would only go about 35, where go-karts could run anywhere from 45 to 80 or 90 mile an hour. I was 5 years old, got my first little race car, and so by the time I was 9, I wanted to go faster. So
feel the need for speed, huh?
Or to terrorize my parents. I'm not sure which.
So were they into that culture of the Indy 500? I mean, was that part of the draw of why they were there?
Well, my father, he raced in stock cars. His goal was always NASCAR, and he did some pretty big events. But yeah, I mean, when you grow up that close to the track, you almost have no choice. You have to be a part of it. It's a little different though when you're watching a race and your child's involved. I know that once I flipped my quarter midget multiple times, and I remember looking up and seeing my mom climbing the catch fence and running across the track.
Whoa.
Yeah. Yeah.
I went to the Indy 200 once. That's the closest that I got to the big game here in Portland, Oregon, and I think I saw Al Unser Jr. So I've seen a little bit of the racetracks, but so you go past 200, don't you, at this point? Or
and it's funny. Al Unser Jr. just had dinner at my house 2 weekends ago. There's a picture of me and him on my social media. He's a very good friend. Yeah, the series that I run, it runs right at 200, 205, and it's a feeder series to get to IndyCar. So, like, IndyCars on a main straightaway can go between 240, 250, and so you wouldn't think that, that would be that much different, but it really is.
Definitely. Now, I'm sensing that there's got to be a very unique difference of, the way the culture is in the racing industry versus being out and, so free with gender fluidity and expression and all that. So I'm wondering if there's a backstory there. If I read correctly in this article from Unite magazine, you actually came out during the early 90s, like during the Clinton administration. Was that right, Freddie?
Yes.
And
Yeah,
were you
and
racing?
it wasn't that pleasant.
How did it go over? So how did it all go over?
I raced for a team, and they actually didn't know because at the time I was young, and I had 2 kids, and they found out by accident, and then they put the AIDS Cures Fags poster on the trailer. So it wasn't as accepting, and I took a step back. But I have to tell you, the last couple of years, or the last 5 years, the community has stepped up. We have fought for our rights, and we've won them, and we've achieved them. And I think that you can either be a coward and go hide, or you can stand up and take your place. I'm not going to tell you that it's been easy being the first openly gay driver, because it's not. Some sponsors, quite frankly, they act as if they're gay friendly until you ask them to get their checkbooks out, and then it's a different story. It's well, we're afraid that it might hurt our company, and so it's kind of a double-edged sword. Being open and being gay. I think there's appropriate and inappropriate behavior, no matter who you are or what profession you're in. You just have to know the difference, and I think a lot of that comes from home training. I had parents that definitely had no problem spanking or anything like that. So I think that you just have to be respectful no matter who you are, and gain others' respect, and that helps a lot. I think a lot of gay men, and then again, this is just my opinion, at times are their own worst enemies, and what I mean by that is they shove it down people's throats. Where I'm just more laid back, and I just try to always be respectful. So
if we look at that era, and I believe me, I remember '92. I mean, even 2 years before that, here in Oregon, there were anti-LGBT laws and measures that were going up on our legislature and ballots, and it was really becoming a contentious issue. But if you came out in '92 and we were going to the Bill Clinton presidency, then all of that crap, all of that flack was hitting the fan as far as don't ask, don't tell, and all of those things. How did you feel in your early years of being out, seeing the president of the United States, installing policies like don't ask, don't tell? I mean, did that make you want to go back into secrecy, seeing that the country was in a different place at that time?
Well, I'll tell you, I had the owner of the team, and it's funny that you mentioned that because that was quoted to me. You don't be affiliated with this gay publication, don't do interviews, don't do this, don't do that. So everything that would help you promote yourself or market yourself or sponsors, it was like a lie. And I finally, you get to a point to where it's like living in your own personal prison. I want my community's love. I want their support. But most of all, I want to make them proud. And so I feel like all through the 90s, there was a point where I actually quit because it just got to the point where it was like living a lie. And, I don't think there's anything worth that. I didn't want it that bad, I guess, to answer your question. And so it wasn't a good time. There were gay men that were being hurt, and there were gay men that were fighting for our rights. I think the 90s was definitely a hard time for anyone in the community to come out. People were losing their jobs and people were losing their lives, and so I think that we've made a lot of strides since then.
And you left this country for a while, didn't you?
I did, but that was again, to chase a dream. Years ago, they didn't have the Road to Indy series or the feeder series. Like I ran Formula Atlantic and Super Bs and Formula Fords. But if you really wanted to be competitive and make your way to IndyCar, Europe was where you needed to be. And they were even less accepting than America. It was the longest period of my life, for sure. I didn't learn a lot about racing, but I learned a whole lot about people.
So you were talking about kind of the transition back in the last few years where the community has really kind of rallied around you, and that's great. That really seems to be in line with what's going on right now, Freddie. So we're coming up this month on the 1-year anniversary of that historic win at the Supreme Court where they affirmed that same-sex marriage in the United States of America is the law of the land. Can I ask you about that? How did you feel 1 year ago when that historic decision came down and came into this country? How did that impact you?
Well, two things happened. I sat on my front porch and I cried. I felt an enormous sense of pride for the entire community, and that's what pushed me back out of retirement. I felt like get busy living or get busy dying, and it was the right time to go back and chase my IndyCar dream. The laws had changed, and I saw our community as a whole stand up and fight. And so to be part of that, I called Alan Berg, who owns a racing school in California, and he's an old friend, and I said, Alan, I need to come get some seat time. I want to see if I can still be competitive. And that was on a Tuesday, and on Wednesday I was on track with him at Laguna Seca in Monterey, California. And it just kind of went from there. I think the laws being changed a year ago changed everything about my life, and it made me proud for the first time in many years to be a gay man and be a part of this country. But I was even more proud of the community that just would not let it go and kept fighting.
No, I appreciate you saying that, and that's kind of where I was wondering. As far as completing the whole picture of our lives, is that something that you have felt as a gay man was missing? Was that sort of sense of community? And also, I want to bring the president into it. You know, our President Obama has been the most affirmingly positive pro-LGBT president in United States history, coming out a few years earlier saying, I think it's important for me at this time to affirm that I believe same-sex couples should have the right to get married. That's unheard of. So did that sort of bring you full circle into seeing that the country is finally caught up to where you were in your heart?
Well, I think, number one, our president speaks out of both sides of his face, but I was grateful that he did that. I don't think it was sincere. I think it was politically motivated. But the one thing that I can say is our community as a whole, usually in years gone by, we were just told no, and we accepted that to be the law of the land, that we weren't deserving of the same rights. And I think our generation had all of it they could stand and, proved our case and successfully won. But I think that timing is everything. If you would have told me 20 years ago I could have gotten married and had a nice life and had those same things that straight America has, I would have never believed it. And again, it's just been a sense of pride, me racing. I love doing what I do. I would love more if the community was more active and more involved. But I think our time is now, and we don't have to, hide anymore or go to establishments where there's no windows or, not be on live radio or do articles or publications. We are here, and we're not going anywhere.
No, definitely, and I see that, and you've been in several articles. So there's recent press coverage about you. I just wanted to get clarification. Since you've been out for a while, has something more recently changed, or did you contact press? Why is your story coming up so much right at this particular time, just out of curiosity?
Well, a couple of reasons. It was the 100th running of the Indianapolis 500, which was huge, but I also am with the first team that I've ever raced for that was supportive of me. Pride for Indianapolis is this Saturday, and Unite magazine will have a booth, and I'll be there with my team. I'm accepted, and they're not just words. It's truthfully from their heart. because I had even told the guys, you don't have to go. And they're like, shoot, no, we already bought outfits and shoes. We're going. We're having fun. So years gone by, teams did not want any affiliation. We know you can drive a race car, just shut up and drive. So
yeah.
It's a little different now. And so now for the first time, and I'll be honest with you too, there have been some publications that I have seen that quite frankly are messy. Not all gay men dress up like Tina Turner or Cher and lip sync for their life, and not all gay men are go-go boys. So I definitely don't fit the stereotype. So I think it's just kind of all the stars had to align, but I am with an amazing group of people. I have an amazing sponsor, and I contributed to the community, taking their place and not taking no as an answer.
Yeah. Well, what I think that is really important about your story, and this is part of what I wanted to highlight today, is that as we get to this place of same-sex marriages, the law of the land, and then hopefully we get to a point where things like the Equality Act and much more protections are in place, but I think acceptance be the big deal. I would just love for the country to see you as an out Indy driver as being normal, not, now there's an out, Indy driver, just that it's normal, just like, this doctor, the school teacher, lawyer, you know what I mean? We should get to the point where, that makes perfect sense. And I know that in sports, the culture has been very slow as far as it coming out, because that industry is particularly brutal to out athletes, and it can be a career ender. So I understand that, and that's the same reason some actors in Hollywood choose to keep it a secret, for the interest of getting that next role, that next script, that next deal, Mm-hmm. But I think that that's something that you would probably like to see eventually. It's just for this to be a normal,
Well, it is, because I think that here's the thing. I never asked to be the gay driver. I wanted to be the best driver. And being a gay man is such a small part of who I am. I'm also a father. It's such a small part. And when it's like, I'll use this. Years ago, white people, we were notorious, and I was raised this way too. You couldn't just say a man if you saw a black man. You would say, a black man. And now in today's society, that's not really appropriate. And so to me, it's the equivalent for gays. It's, he's the gay guy. Why can't you just say the guy standing over there? So I feel like too much of America has had too many stereotypes. There's certain shows that don't help our cause at all. So hopefully, people will see me and see, that we are just as normal as anyone else. We deserve the same rights. And that most of all, a lot of gay men, we do have home training, and we know how to conduct ourselves in public or be appropriate. I think that a lot of people, their mind goes left to the stuff that goes on behind closed doors, when I don't know anybody that does stuff like that. So, it's I hope, that I can be a platform on what people base their opinions on, and, and that our community is proud. I would love to see some of the community come out and watch me race. I would love to see some gay-owned and operated businesses, buy real estate on my race car. And again, for the first time in my career, I'm able to do that. I'm able to say that, and it wholeheartedly be the truth,
That's incredible. Where can our listeners check you out online if they want to look for sponsorship or follow your races online, or what's your internet presence like?
They can reach me through Twitter, or I race for Top Kart USA, or they can reach me through social media. I'm not that hard to find.
Awesome.
Now all I need you to do is just put out there that since these laws changed on this whole husband thing, I got to find me one. So that's the goal this year.
Well, you have until June 26th, so you have a couple of weeks here before the official one-year anniversary. Now,
I got to date somebody first, I guess.
Well, I wasn't sure if we were going to get into that. So, is your career kind of a time killer? Is that dominating the most of your time, or are you out on the road a lot? Is it that kind of a life?
I am on the road a lot. This past week, I was in New York, Charlotte, and Virginia in 48 hours. There hasn't been much time to date. And I think that at times people think I'm unapproachable, and that's not the case at all. I'm a pretty friendly guy. But I work out a lot. I train with a boxing coach. I boxed for 12 years when I was growing up. I'm not your average gay man. So I think that that's a little intimidating to some people. And as far as dating, I think it's hard for someone to date me because it's hard to watch anyone that you love or you care about going 200 mile an hour in a race car. You have to have nerves of steel, for sure.
Acknowledged. I think if I was in a position, I would feel the same way. It'd be almost like watching a boxing match or just something like that. Like, oh no, he got his face bashed in. Like,
yeah. Oh no, he's upside down. He's in the
on the positive side, though. But on the positive side, I want to invoke a famous couple that I see on Twitter all the time. So Dustin Lance Black and his partner Tom Daly. Tom Daly's running all around the world doing all this swimming and stuff, and it seems like they're always together. I'm like, okay, so either the other one travels, with a sports figure, or they just meet up somewhere in the middle. But to me, I picture that they're probably on planes a lot, and that's what their relationship has to be, is airplanes. I know for a fact. So that's hard, right? That's hard.
Well, yeah, but I'll tell you the good thing, though. Okay, so like mainstream drivers like IndyCar and NASCAR, in their contract, they usually have a clause to where their significant other is included in the deal. And the beautiful thing about the team and the sponsors that I have now, they afforded me that same luxury. So if I was to date someone, they could travel with me. And I have to tell you, I'm in front of cameras a lot, and I'm on track a lot. So sometimes all you have is that couple hours on an airplane. But it's, you do travel a lot. But it's really, it's at the end of the day, I feel like my job is no different than anybody else's job. I just, it's work to me, and but I enjoy what I do. So there is room for somebody in my life, definitely.
Definitely. Well, I will. We will kind of put it out there, but I will put it out there.
Make sure they can cook. I like to eat.
So, like to round things out. So it sounds like things are going really incredible in the racing world for you now. What's next? What's beyond this? What's the next big game?
The plan of attack is to align myself with some companies for some higher sponsorship dollars and go full throttle IndyCar next year. My goal is the 101 Indy 500. It takes revenue to do that, but I think getting my story out there and people seeing that, I'm just as deserving as anyone else, and I'm just as capable. I have the skill. Again, it just takes that backing, So I think I race better when I'm happy. So I'm really going to need you to find me a partner. And yeah. So, but I think, that's the goal. I have a team that's capable to take me to the next level. We have the manpower. We have the facility. It's just a matter of sponsorship dollars. And quite frankly, the racing community has been so receptive to me this go round. It's like open arms. And, like if you look on my social media, you'll see pictures of me and Gabby Chavez at my house, or me and Al Unser Jr. or me and Al Unser III. There was a picture of me. I did a couple stock car events, and I was in front of Danica Patrick's car, and I said, you guys think she'd care if I took it for, a ride? And her dad comments on there, and he said, something about doing donuts and just put the cover on. She'll just think they're bad tires. So there's been a tremendous outpour of love from the racing world. But an even more, I would love to see a bigger presence of the community.
That's great, and I'm so pleased that you had dinner with Al Unser Jr. My father adores Al Unser Jr., and that's how I ended up getting, I won't say dragged along. At the time I wasn't quite into it, but then I appreciated it later, but how I came to the Indy 200, which was there, it's Delta Park, whatever it is, there in Portland, where they raced the Indy 200, but it was really cool. I was in 1990, if you can believe that.
I think, didn't Al win, was it 90 or 91 he won the 500? It was one of those years, but that 90 and 91 were two big years for Al Unser Jr.
Because I remember my dad having this huge celebration, like, we saw him before, so I'm pretty sure he won the year after we saw him.
Well, me and Al agree on two things, racing and food. we agree on those two things, yeah.
Well, I am so pleased that you came on the show, Freddie. It really does warm my heart to see that you have gotten back into the racing world with this level of acceptance. I think that is what you need. That's what the world needs, and we'd like to check in with you from time to time, and we'll see how that search goes as well.
I want to thank you, and I just want to say this for the record. I have been approached numerous times about doing radio interviews, and I've always declined them. You are the very first one I've done, and I did my homework, and I felt like this was the best avenue for me, and I'm just was so proud that you guys agreed to do it with me, and so yeah, you're my first.
Thank you. I really appreciate that, and we will put this out there for the world and share in the good energy. My sincere best wishes with everything you're doing in racing. Thank you very much for sharing your story with us today, Freddy Niblack.
You're welcome. Take care.
Have a good day.
You too.
You've been listening to Gay News Radio on the GNR Radio Network. Download our mobile app for iPhone and Android today. And have a good gay.